It's Shabbos. The period we're in now is called the period of the Omer. On the one hand, it's like Chol HaMoed. It's like the in-between days of a holiday. It starts in Pesach, ends on Shavuot. We're looking forward to giving of the Torah. But because of an event that happened 2,000 years ago, where Rabbi Akiva's students, 24,000 of them, all died in the short period of 33 days, this time period, it is a time, in a sense, of mourning, and therefore we don't get married in this period. We don't listen to live music. We don't get haircuts. So we have these limitations, and it's quite a long period of time, at least 33 days, if not more longer, because the whole period from the end of Pesach to Shavuos is about 6 weeks. And in this whole period, we have these limitations to remember this death of Rabbi Akiva's students. The interesting thing is, why do we spend so much time trying to learn a lesson from Rabbi Akiva's students and why they passed away, when everything else and every other holiday has 1 day, 2 days, 7 days, 8 days, not 33 days or 6 weeks? And the reason is because the message is so important that we need a long period of time to internalize this message. And what's the message? Our Talmud tells us the reason they passed away, they did not respect and honor each other. In other words, they were the opposite of the principle of the Torah that we read about in this week's Parsha, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow as yourself. And Rabbi Akiva says this is the general principle of the entire Torah. If you want to know what's most important mitzvah, it's that. Love your fellow as yourself. Now, love your fellow Jew as yourself. Now, the question is, how is that possible? How is that possible? And many of the commentaries on the Chumash ask that question. How can I love someone like I love myself? It's not human nature. It's difficult to love someone like you love yourself. And so many of the commentaries actually lower the bar. And they say it doesn't mean love someone like you love yourself. It's almost like treat someone like you love yourself. So one from the Balei Tosfos, and those who wrote the commentary in the Tosfos in the 12th, 13th century, the 13th century, 13th, 14th century, they say that lerayacha means that which your friend has. In other words, respect his possessions and his money like you would your own. The Rambam says it means do good things for them, like visit the sick, escort, go to a funeral, escort your guests out the house, show them how you care about them. People come, be hospitable, comfort the mourners, bring joy to a chas and kala. All these mitzvot are part of, all these activities are part of the mitzvah of Avtalach Kamecha. Love your fellow as yourself. In other words, do things for others that you would want others should do for you. The Ramban gives another perspective, and that is, even if we're happy for other people's successes, human nature is such that we don't want that other person should be equal to us, just slightly below us. So if I'm very wealthy, I want him to be wealthy, it's fine, but just less than me. Very smart, was smart, a little bit less than me. Successful, a little less than me, etc. So the mitzvah of Avtalach Kamecha, says the Ramban, is that I shouldn't begrudge someone else. I should be happy with their successes as much as me. I don't need them to be less than me. So this is all nice and good, but it's actually not the literal meaning of the verse. So the Alter Rebbe, in his famous chapter 32 in Tanya, brings out the concept as follows. If we live a life focused on our body, it's not possible to love someone like yourself. That's true. But if we live a life focused on the soul, then you can. If you can lift yourself to be that what is most important to you is your soul, then you can love someone like yourself. Why? Because their soul and my soul are one. They're brothers. They're actually, their root and source, they're actually one. It's like two physical things can never become one. But take something a little bit less physical, like fire. You could take two flames and unite and become one. So if I have a soul and you have a soul, they can become one. If I live on that perspective, and the perspective of soul, then we can be united and become one. and be one. Now, his grandson makes this whole thing more practical. The Tzemach Tzedek says as follows. He goes by what Hillel says. Hillel says, what you hate done to you, do not do to someone else. What do we hate done to us? We hate to be defined by our faults. We hate to be defined by our weakness. We hate that people should see something wrong in us and say, that tells you about the person. This is the kind of person he is. We know sometimes our faults. We know we've done something wrong, but we justify it. We don't necessarily we don't say, it's right what I've done. Sometimes it could be very well be wrong, but we know that was a circumstance, a situation. Doesn't define me. It's not who I am. And that's how we want other people to see us. We want other people to see that deficiency that we might have shown as not depicting who we are. We want them to see us for the goodness that we have and who we are. And the deficiency is a side issue, just like you would do for yourself. The Talmud tells a story. Talmud Tractate Shabbos tells a story of a worker, a laborer, or a fellow who needed to earn a living. So he left his home and he went to the Galilee. And he was a worker, a helper for someone in their fields for 3 years. Didn't go home for 3 years. Came before Yom Kippur after 3 years. He goes to the owner, who was a wealthy man who was in a large estate, and says to him, I'd like to go home to my family for Yom Kippur. Can you pay me? And the fellow, till then, he just fed him and took care of him, but he didn't pay him his wages yet. He would give it to him at the end. He says, I'm sorry, I can't. I don't have it. So he says, you don't have money, but maybe you could give me goods. Maybe you can give me linen, bedding. I mean, I can't go home after 3 years not being with my family. My kids missed me for this long period of time and not have anything to show them, to give them. I can't come home empty-handed after not being there for 3 years. What was I there for? He says, I'm sorry, I don't have anything. I cannot give you anything. So he left saddened. He comes home, and after the holidays, the fellow comes with 3 wagon loads full of goods and gives it to him as his payment for his work. And he asks him, tell me, when I told you I don't have, what did you think? He says, the truth is, I thought that possibly you would have sanctified it all to the temple, and therefore it doesn't belong to you, and therefore you have nothing to give me at that time. He says, you know what? You're right. I was very angry with my son, and I made an oath that all my possessions are not going to him, they're going to the temple, and therefore I had nothing to give you at that time. Now, we're told in Shiltus Rabbi Choy that Medrash tells us that this story happened with Rabbi Akiva, which makes sense. Rabbi Akiva, the great Rabbi Akiva, that this poor man who left his home for 3 years was Rabbi Akiva. Well, the question is, why doesn't the Talmud tell us it's Rabbi Akiva? Wouldn't this be a nice addition to understand the biography of the special person, Rabbi Akiva? It just says there was a man. It tells us a story about someone who remains nameless. And only if we read Shiltas Rabbi Chai, a later work, do we know it's Rabbi Akiva. Why? And the answer is given as follows. If it would have said it was Rabbi Akiva, you'd say, okay, Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva is a special person. It's suitable for him. But don't expect it of me. The reason the Talmud doesn't tell us the name Rabbi Akiva is to tell you that this kind of a story is relevant for everyone. Each one of us can act in that way, like Rabbi Akiva did there. We can have the broadness of mind to judge people favorably and judge people as we would like to be judged. And that is to always see the good in us, even when we have deficiencies. May we incorporate this into our life. Think about a case where we've judged someone and see, maybe I don't want to define them by the negativity. He's good. She's great. And yeah, maybe did something wrong. Or maybe I have to figure out how to, maybe that wasn't wrong altogether. Just like you'd like that done to you. Good Shabbos.